there's some music. Is that from my side or your side?
It's just a minute, Puji. I'll just remove it. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Very nice to have this association with all of you today and to be with you on the first day of this month of Purushottam. So I think all of you requested me to speak on the last 5 verses of the Bhagavad-Gita and then also on the month of Purushottam. So maybe we can start with the Bhagavad-Gita verses. Okay, so I've shared my screen. Let's go back here. Everyone, please, you can repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So these final 5 verses of chapter 15 are very relevant to our discussion today, the topic of discussion, which is Purushottam Mas. Someone has raised their hand. Is there some? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji. So you can ignore hand raising, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Thanks.
Dvavimau purushau loke kshara evacha kshara sarvani bhutani bhutasto kshara uchyate. Dvavimau purushau loke kshara evacha kshara sarvani bhutani bhutosta kshara uchyate. Translation: there are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. Uttama purushastvanya paramatmetyudahrita yo lokatrayam avishya vibhartyavyaya ishvara. Besides these 2, there is the greatest living personality, the super soul, the imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the 3 worlds and is maintaining them. Yasmat ksharam atitoham aksharad apichottama atosmi loki vedecha pratishta purushottama. Because I am transcendental beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. Yo mam evam asammudho janati purushottamam sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubting, is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam maya nagha etad buddha buddhiman syat kritascha bharata. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. The Lord clearly explains here that this is a substance of all revealed scriptures. And one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become freed from all contaminations of the modes of material nature. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot exist. Devotional service to the Lord and the Lord Himself are one and the same, because they are spiritual. Devotional service takes place within the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present, under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. Everyone must take to this Krishna consciousness, to this consciousness of Krishna, and engage in devotional service to become intelligent and purified. Unless one comes to this position of understanding Krishna and engages in devotional service, however intelligent he may be in the estimation of some common man, he is not perfectly intelligent. The word anagha, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Anagha, or sinless one, means that unless one is freed from all sinful reactions, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. One has to become free from all contamination, all sinful activities. Then he can understand. But devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. While one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. In this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of heart. And the rest of the chapter, from 6th verse through the end, discuss Purushottama Yoga. Om Jnanam Timarannasya Jnanam Jana Shlakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Tadati Swam. Hare Krishna, everyone. So it's very nice to be in the association of such exalted devotees as all of you. I see that many people are present here on the call, and all of you may be in different places. We are all connecting over Zoom at different time zones. So you may have heard that the wonderful month of Purushottam has just begun. And here in this chapter, Krishna is speaking about Purushottama Yoga. So it's a very relevant chapter. And here in these verses, we see how Krishna is telling us that there are 2 types of living entities. There's the fallible and the infallible, meaning the imperfect and the perfect. Fallible means someone who makes mistakes. Infallible means one who does not make any mistakes. So who are the fallible living entities? The fallible living entities are all of us. All of us. And therefore, we should not be surprised. We should not be distressed if any of us makes mistakes. Why? Because by definition, this world and the living entities in this world are, generally speaking, fallible. They will make mistakes. So we should actually be surprised if we don't make a mistake. To make a mistake is the nature of this world. And in contrast to the fallible living entities, there is the infallible living entities. Now one may think, oh, infallible, this means God. But no, Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport to text 16 of this verse that infallible living entities means living entities that do not make mistakes like we do, meaning the living entities who are the liberated souls, souls who are in the spiritual world, for example, who are completely liberated. They are considered to be infallible souls. One may think, well, can they not make a mistake? How is this possible? How can a living being not make a mistake? But no, this is indeed possible. Why is this possible? Because all living beings are prone to make mistakes, but those living beings who have taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, those living beings who have taken shelter of the Supreme Lord, they become as good, they become as glorious as the Supreme Lord himself. And one example of such a person is Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was an infallible living being. Not in the sense that he was God, not in the sense that he was all-knowing, but whatever he did was perfect. And this is why he was so attractive. There's a very wonderful verse in the Vedic scriptures which says that generally our words follow the facts. So, if it is outside, if the sun is shining, then I will say the sun is shining. So my words will follow the facts. But in the case of great sages, the facts follow their words. Meaning whatever they say, even if it is incorrect, will become correct. Why? Because all of nature is trying to follow the words of the sages. And this is why what the sages said was so important. This is why they were also known as Trikalarshi. Because whatever they say is perfect. Whatever they would say it would be perfect. So this is the nature of the infallible souls, the great personalities. That whatever they say becomes perfect. Even if it's imperfect, let's say, it is perfect because the facts will follow them. Now, of course, this is a very special category of souls. We cannot imitate this, or we cannot think that anyone is on this level. One has to be sakshat haritvena samasta shastra. One has to be as good as a Supreme Lord. And a very, very elevated devotee is on that level of being infallible. And the devotee is still always a devotee. So he's never God. We don't make the mistake of calling the devotee God. So the devotee is not all-knowing. So if you ask the devotee how many grains of sand is in my hand, the devotee cannot tell you how many grains of sand is in the hand. But whatever the devotee does, whatever the devotee needs to know, that the Lord will tell. So the devotee is infallible in the sense that the devotee knows everything that the Lord wants him to know. And therefore, whatever he says, whatever guidance he gives, it is perfect. So these are the two categories of living entities. But then Krishna goes on to say, in addition to this, there's another category of living, of a spiritual being. And that is beyond fallible and infallible. Who is that? That is Purushottam. That is the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, present within our heart. That personality is called Purushottam. And he says, I am Purushottama. I am the Supreme Lord. And those who know me as the Supreme Lord, they will take my shelter. So the story, the narration of the month of Purushottama actually explains this very well. That how Krishna is that person who is worthy of being taken shelter of. He is the best, the highest person amongst all living beings. He is Purushottama, and therefore he is worthy of being taken shelter of. So this is the story of the month of Purushottam, which I will narrate now. One point I was just going to make very quickly here. Getting it. Yes, the scriptures say, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kama. So the Lord is also eternal, we are also eternal. The Lord is also a living entity, we are also a living entity. But the Lord is the one living entity upon whom all the other living entities depend. The Lord is independent and we are dependent. So someone may ask, if the pure devotee is infallible and the Lord is infallible, then what is the difference between the two? The difference is that the Lord is independent and the devotee, even though the devotee is infallible, is still dependent on the Lord. The devotee is infallible because the Lord makes him infallible. And the Lord is all powerful and the living entity is limited in its power. So one time, basically the sages were engaged in their activities of performing karma kanda. So in the Vedic scriptures, we find that there are many different areas of the Vedas. And some sections of the Vedas, some books, are specifically meant for those who are interested in ritualistic activities. This is called karma kanda. And so the Brahmanas, they engage in karma kanda because the majority of the population is interested simply in material benefit. They're not interested in spiritual activities. So in karma kanda, there's so many rituals, and the rituals are done according to the different time periods, the different months of the year, the different masas, right? There's so many different periods of time, and according to that period of time, the different ritualistic activities are performed. Now, in the lunar calendar, after some period of time, there is an extra month that comes, which is an additional month after every about 2.5 years. And there's an astrological reason for this. That after 2.5 years, there's a in order to make all the calculations balanced, there's an additional month that is added. And this month does not come every year. And therefore, there are no ritualistic activities prescribed for that month in the Karmakanda scriptures. Because it's not yearly, it comes once in 2.5 years or 12 years, or sometimes people say once in 19 years, but it's not a regular happening. And therefore, this month is called Malamas. Mala means bad month. And it's considered bad because no ritualistic activities can take place at this time. They're not prescribed at this time. So in our Vedic scriptures, everything is personalized. All the different months of the year, they're actually persons. So this Malamas, the Devi who is in charge of the Malamas, she became very unhappy. And she thought, what is this? What is the purpose of my life? My month is condemned by all the devotees of the Lord. my month is condemned by the sages, by the Brahmanas. And so I'm so unfortunate. Why is it the case that nothing auspicious happens in my month? So, feeling very unhappy, she went crying to Lord Narayan. And Lord Narayan, he's so glorious, so wonderful. He's there in Vaikuntha, lying on his causal ocean. And there she goes and she begs the Lord. She starts to cry in front of him. And she cries so much. And she is an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. So Lord Narayan is very surprised. He asks that what is the reason for your distress? Why are you crying so much? And she explains the problem. She says, in my month, it is considered Mala Mas. Actually, in Sanskrit, Mala means stool. This Mas is so, I'm being condemned like this, cursed like this. So, Lord Narayan, please help me. Please, no one wants to marry me. No one wants to perform any pious activities during my month. All the sages have rejected me. Please help me. So Lord Narayan says, you have a very big problem. And your problem is so big that let us go to Lord Krishna. Because I think only he can solve your problem. So Lord Narayan, he takes the Devi for this month and he goes to Lord Shri Krishna. And when he reaches there, the Lord Krishna, she starts to cry in front of Lord Krishna also. And Lord Krishna understands her difficulty, her problem. And it's said that when we go to the Lord and we take shelter of the Lord, then the Lord gives us protection. This is his promise. So, seeing that his unalloyed devotee was very unhappy, the Lord speaks to her and he says, don't worry, I will make your month the most auspicious month. And therefore, he said, during your month, anyone who performs my own devotional service, my own bhakti, they will derive very great benefit by that performance of devotional service. So in the other months, they derive benefit by performing ritualistic activities, of course, except for Kartik. Kartik is also, for Gaudiya Vaishnavas especially, a very, very auspicious month. In some sense, for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Kartik is more important than Purushottam Mas. We see that our acharyas have focused more on the month of Kartik than they have on Purushottam. And so therefore, following in their footsteps and following their example, Srila Prabhupada's example, the example of the 6 Goswamis, the various acharyas, we give more importance to Kartik. The month of Kartik is more important for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, for devotees and followers of Srila Prabhupada, than Purushottam Mas. So except for Kartik, the other months are good for, ritualistic activities. But your month won't be famous for ritualistic activities, but it will be famous for the performance of devotional service. Any devotional service done in this month has 1,000 times more benefit than any other month, than at any other time. So like, when you play a game or when you are shopping or something like this, they say there's bonus points. When we go shopping, it says, buy one, get one free. So everyone likes to shop when that sale is there. I don't know, in the city where you're staying, if that's the case, but at least where I live, this is very common. Buy one, get one free. Now imagine if there was some sale which said, buy one, get 1,000 free. You buy one car, you buy one vehicle, and you'll get 1,000 vehicles free. You buy one home, you will get 1,000 homes free. You buy one diamond, you will get 1,000 diamonds free. So that is Purushottam. Imagine such a sale. Everyone would run for it. So here Krishna is giving us those bonus points. That sale. Imagine how kind he is. That you chant one round, it will be equivalent to 1,000 rounds. And so how auspicious is this month? And Lord Krishna further on tells her that this month is so auspicious that I will put my own name on it. And therefore, from now on, rather than being called Malamas, it will be known as Purushottam Mas. And this is how the name of Purushottam became attached to this month. It is now known as Purushottam Mas. Why? Because Lord Krishna, Purushottam, he who is beyond the fallible and the infallible, he has put his name to this month. So this is the how this month became so glorious. And in the life of the great devotees of the Lord, we see how the significance of this month is glorified. One time, when Lord Krishna was with the Pandavas in the forest during their exile, when the Pandavas were exiled in the forest, the Maharaj, Yudhishthira was very peaceful in the forest. He was he was very happy. His nature was very saintly, and he was dharma personified. And all the Pandavas were great, great devotees of the Lord. At the same time, Bhima and Arjuna and Draupadi, their nature, being great devotees of the Lord, their nature was more of a Kshatriya nature. And so at times they would become very, very angry and unhappy. That why is it the case that we have to suffer like this? Why are we in this forest and exiled for 13 years? Of course, this was just a pastime. Being great devotees of the Lord, they're fully satisfied and happy in Krishna consciousness. But we know, how Bhima would get angry. Draupadi and Arjuna would also feel angry. So one time Krishna came to meet them. And when he came to meet them, then the Lord explained to them that actually, again, this is a pastime. They're pure devotees of the Lord, but the Lord teaches the world through his devotees. So the Lord was telling the Pandavas and Maharaj Yudhishthira that actually the reason why you are suffering in the forest like this is because the last time Purushottam Mas came, you did not observe it properly. And therefore, the reaction of not observing this very auspicious month is that you were exiled to the forest. And now you are, undergoing the penance for that. Furthermore, Lord Krishna described a very interesting narration. He said that long time ago, there was a great sage by the name of Medhava Muni. And this sage was performing austerities in the forest, as sages do. And being very, very absorbed in the Lord's worship, he was sort of not so careful about his material duties. So this sage had a daughter. And the daughter was very beautiful, and she was of marriageable age. However, because Medhava Muni was engaged in deep austerities, he did not take care of getting his daughter married. He just did not have time, and he was always absorbed in the Lord's service. So he was not doing that. And then one day when Medhava Muni was engaged in the worship of the Lord, he chanted the name of the Lord and he gave up his life. He died and he went back to Vaikuntha. So when he passed away, Medhava Muni's daughter began to cry. She began to cry very piteously because she had no one else in the world. Her only, so to say, companion, protector, caretaker was her father, Medhava Muni. And so when she began to cry like this, news spread that Medhava Muni had passed away. And Medhava Muni, being a very famous sage, a very exalted sage, fully absorbed in the Lord's service, and being so exalted, he knew that the Lord would take care of his daughter's marriage. So he was not exactly also being irresponsible. His example is not for us, but his example was for, describing what great devotees are like. They are so in tune with the Lord, he knew that the Lord will take care of his daughter. So all the great sages came to know that Medava Muni has given up his body. So then Durvasa Muni came to the ashrama to give his respects to the sage, knowing that the sage had passed, and also to take care of the daughter of Medava Muni. So we all know Durvasa Muni is very famous sage. So he comes to the ashram, and there Medava Muni's daughter begins to cry and cry in front of the sage and ask Durvasa Muni to please give her a husband. Please arrange for a husband and to help her, because she has no one else in this world. So Durvasa Muni, feeling great compassion upon the daughter of the sage and wanting to help the sage because the sage was his personal friend, Durvasa Muni said, okay, I will help you. However, he said, this great month of Purushottama is just a few days away. So why don't you observe this month before we make arrangements? Before doing anything else, observe this month of Purushottam, because this month is very, very pure. It is very, very exalted, and it will fulfill all your desires. So first, worship the Lord during this month. The Lord will fulfill your desires, and then we will see further. However, Medava Muni's daughter was a little bit haughty, and she was she was less submissive to the sage. And so she began to argue with the sage. She said, my dear sage, how can you say that this month is so exalted, when in fact it is known as Malamas? None of the sages perform sacrifices during this month. No rituals are performed during this month. So how can you say that this is an exalted month? This is the most fallen of all months. It is Malamas. So why are you giving me this instruction? And like this, she just kept on, kept on being an upstart, as they say. Sometimes we find that when we are new in Krishna consciousness, we tend to argue a lot. And so she had this nature of wanting to argue and argue and argue. And all of you know very well who Durvasa Muni is. And what is Durvasa Muni famous for? Anyone can say? What is he famous for?
Becoming angry.
Yes, he becomes angry very easily. Why? Because he is an Ansha of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva becomes pleased very easily. Durvasa Muni also becomes pleased very easily. When someone serves him very nicely, he immediately gives benedictions, but he also becomes angry very easily. So when Durvasa Muni, when he heard these words from a small girl who was not even in relation, not even the age of his granddaughter. Durvasa Muni is thousands of years old, and she was maybe 20 years old or 15 years old. And when he heard that this girl is, questioning him and criticizing him and saying that she knows more than he does, he became very angry. He becomes, very, very disturbed and angry. So then Durvasa Muni, he thinks about cursing her. However, he remembers that no, Medava Muni is his dear friend. So he does not want to curse her, because he'll be cursing the daughter of his dear friend who has now left his daughter. And he knows that Medava Muni will feel great pain if something bad happens to his daughter. So Durvasa Muni tells the girl, he says that I will not curse you because your father is Medava Muni and he is my dear friend. However, you have insulted Purushottam Mass. And therefore, that I cannot solve for you. That reaction will come to you. And that is destined. You will not get that. You will get the reaction for criticizing this month. The offense that you have performed to this month, that you will have to undergo. And after that, Durvasa Muni leaves. So soon after he leaves, Medava Muni's daughter loses her beauty. She becomes sick, very weak, due to the reaction of her offense to Purushottama mass. Just as the sage had said, she loses her good qualities, her beauty, and her good fortune, and she becomes very, very unhappy. Then, being also, very saintly in nature, realizing her mistake, Medava Muni's daughters feels that she should do something now to atone for that mistake. And so then she begins to worship Lord Shiva. And she performs very, very great austerities to please Lord Shiva. As you mentioned, Durvasa Muni is the Ansha of Shiva. And so therefore, in some ways, the correct also, solution to this offense was to worship Lord Shiva. And by performing great austerities, she pleases Lord Shiva. And he appears before her. When he appears before her, he is very compassionate and he asks her, "My dear girl, my dear daughter, please ask me for benediction." So at this point, there's different versions of the narration. And one version of the narration says that Medava Muni's daughter, having waited so long for a husband, being a young girl and naturally wanting a husband, she asked Shiva, "My dear Lord, please give me a husband. 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 Please give me a husband." And she asked him 5 times for a husband, which we can understand in this material world it happens. And so Lord Shiva says, yes, indeed, you have asked me for a husband, and you have asked me 5 times for a husband. And so therefore, you will be blessed with 5 husbands. So when Medava Muni's daughter hears this, she's shocked. She says, "How can I have 5 husbands? No, my dear Lord, please don't give me 5 husbands. I only want 1 husband. I was just very anxious, so I asked you 5 times." So Lord Shiva, he tells Medava Muni's daughter, he says, "I'm sorry, but whatever I say has to come true. So now that I have said it, you will have 5 husbands. However, since you are asking me, I will delay it by 1 lifetime. So you won't have 5 husbands in this life, but you will have in your next life 5 husbands." So this is one version of the story. Another version of the story says that when Lord Shiva comes, then Medava Muni's daughter asks Lord Shiva for a husband. And she just asks once. But she says that I want a husband who is like Dharma personified. I want a husband who is stronger than the strongest person in this world. I want a husband who is the best archer in this world. I want a husband who is very tolerant. And I want a husband who is very good looking, very handsome. So he's the dream husband. Every unmarried girl dreams for a young man who will be just like this, perfectly righteous, very handsome, very strong, very good at their work, in this case, a very good fighter, and also very tolerant, is able to tolerate her. So in this way, she asks these 5 benedictions. And Lord Shiva, being a little, you could say, overwhelmed by her benediction, he says that in this material world, you cannot find one person who has all 5 of these qualities. No one man will have all 5 of these qualities. They will either be righteous, or they will be very strong, or they will be very handsome. But you can't have the most handsome, most strong, most righteous person all in the same person. Not possible. And so therefore, to fulfill your benediction in your next life, you will have 5 husbands. And each one of them will have these qualities. So therefore, the Pandavas were famous for these things. And so in their next life, now you probably guessed who this Devi is. The daughter of Medava Muni. She reincarnates as Draupadi. And she is Draupadi, she is born from the fire, and then she is destined to marry the 5 Pandavas. So, Lord Krishna tells the Pandavas that you are in the forest because you failed to observe Purushottama Mas. And Draupadi, she has 5 husbands, and she underwent this ordeal. And she was mistreated in the assembly of the Kauravas because she offended the month of Purushottam. As Durvasa Muni had said, he forgave the offense towards himself, but because she had offended the month of Purushottama, she had to undergo this very unhappy experience of being disrespected in the assembly of the kings. So through this very special pastime, Lord Krishna glorified the month of Purushottam. And he showed us the effect of offending this month, of not taking it seriously. So today, for all of you, it is the first day of Purushottam. I believe it is evening time there. Before you sleep, do something special. Observe this month, because Lord Krishna is warning us that we should not disrespect it. We should respect it by taking some vow, doing some seva, offering something to the Lord for this month, every day. And secondly, Lord Krishna is showing the power of observing this month, that how one can become a great devotee of the Lord, a great humble devotee of the Lord, by pleasing the Lord during this one month. And so during this month, many people will take various vows, right? They'll take vows of increasing their chanting. So rather than chanting 16 rounds every day, they'll chant 25 rounds every day. Or to increase their reading, to read Srimad Bhagavatam very carefully during this month, increase our reading. To increase our Shravanam, our hearing, you can say every day I'll attend one Zoom class by some Vaishnava. Now there's so many classes, it's almost too many classes. And we think, how can I hear so much? So this month is an opportunity to hear every day. We can give something in charity. We can help the temple. We can help the devotees. So like this, every person should take some vow during this month. And we will see that by taking this vow, we will come closer to the Lord, because the Lord has given this benediction. And in Jagannath Puri, when this month comes, also that Jagannath Puri is known as Purushottama Kshetra, right? We all know it's known as Purushottama Kshetra. So naturally, Purushottama Mas is very special. So when this month comes, it is the time, or the year, so to say, when Lord Jagannath receives special seva. And what is this special seva? This is the time when the servants of Lord Jagannath, they carve the deity of the Lord, because the deity of Lord Jagannath is made of wood. So every so often it needs to be changed. A new deity is made. It's the same Lord, but the Lord will take the new deity, the form of that new deity. So they will, carve the Lord, and millions of people will see Lord Jagannath during this time. So, or go to the temple to have darshan of the Lord once the Lord is carved. So in this way, so many devotional activities can take place. But the most important point is that this month is meant to take shelter of the Lord, sacrifice our time, our energy for the service of the Lord. And the only reason we may not do it, Srila Prabhupada here is describing, is due to a weakness of heart. And Prabhupada in this purport is saying the most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of heart. This is our fall down, is our weakness of heart. Why don't we wake up in the morning to chant? Because we are weak in heart. We think, no, let me sleep one more hour. Why do we not take this process seriously? Because we are weak in heart. Not because of the coronavirus, not because of some other external problem, not because of anything. Ultimately, the only reason is the weakness of heart. We have to give up this weakness of heart. And we have to engage in the loving service of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada says, while one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. So altogether we have to remove these things. Then Prabhupada says the most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of heart. So Rupa Goswami says that the only qualification that is needed to get the pure devotional service of the Lord is what? He says, eagerness, greed for the Lord. Otherwise, there's no qualification that is necessary. One does not have to be a rich person. One does not have to be a man. One does not have to be a Brahmana. One does not have to be Indian. One does not have to be American. One can be anyone in this world. There's no qualification for devotion, for the performance of devotional service to become a pure devotee of the Lord. The only qualification that he says that is there is greed, lobha, greed for the mercy of the Lord, greed for the service of the Lord. That greed must be there. And when we are very greedy for the service of the Lord, when we have overcome the weakness of heart, then we will observe the month of Purushottam. Then with firm determination, we will observe this month. So then, what does Lord Krishna tell the Pandavas? He says that in a few days, this month of Purushottam is about to come. So now, in order to get out of this unfortunate situation, so-called unfortunate situation that you find yourself in, he tells Maharaj Yudhishthira, he tells the Pandavas and Draupadi that now please carefully observe this month of Purushottam. Perform spiritual activities during this month, and he says, then all blessings will come upon you. So then after that, Maharaj Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, they very carefully performed the Purushottam Vrata. They engaged in the very loving devotional service of the Lord. They heard from the sages. They performed great austerities. And as we know later on, very soon after that, they regained their kingdom and they won the battle, all of these things. So the glories of Purushottama Mass are unlimited. We simply have to have the faith. We simply need to have the determination, like the Pandavas, to perform this. And if we can get that determination, if we can instill our faith into it, then the Lord will bestow his blessings upon us. So today, all of us can think how we want to serve the Lord during this month. And this can be our meditation. And we can beg the Lord for his mercy so that we can become very fortunate during this month and get pure, unalloyed Krishna Bhakti. Thank you. I will, Prabhuji is saying, you can ask questions now. So I will stop at this point.
Thanks a lot, Prabhu, for your wonderful class. And it's quite
you.
Inspiring. And we have heard about you, how you and your brother were homeschooled, and you got the good fortune of studying Srimad Bhagavatam throughout your young age. And it's a nice, actually, you're a blessed soul, and we could able to get to hear from you today. We are feeling very blessed, Prabhuji.
You're being very kind and generous, Prabhu. It's my good fortune, and to have the association of great souls like yourself, and for my own purification, speak about the glories of Purushottam. Actually, in the course of preparing for this class, I also became inspired and enthusiastic to observe this month. And so it is actually my good fortune that you asked me to speak on this, and Devashish Prabhu also.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, this matter of hearing, like we often hear about this aspect that hearing is a very, very important aspect of devotional service. And especially during chanting, like we are expected to hear the holy names of the Lord. But we see that it is not, even though we know it theoretically and we are trying for it and things like that, it doesn't happen all the time. So how we can do that in a nice way, Prabhuji?
Actually, Prabhu, just this morning, I was thinking about this same point which you were mentioning. This morning, for me, it's morning time here. So before the class, I was trying to chant my rounds very nicely, but my mind was going everywhere. I was thinking about this and I was thinking about that. And I was thinking how to control the mind. And even though we know this theoretically, how to actually make it happen. And Srila Prabhupada has actually said that the solution for that, when our mind is disturbed and we're unable to focus on our chanting, then the solution to that is to keep on chanting. To just chant more and more and more. And ultimately, the mind will accept defeat. The rascal mind will stop going here and there, and the rascal mind will take shelter of Lord Krishna and will focus on Krishna. So then in my own chanting this morning, starting the 15th and 16th round, I started actually focusing on the chanting. And then I realized that actually 16 is minimum. That's why Srila Prabhupada says 16 is minimum. Why? Because it actually takes 16 rounds to bring the mind in. After 16 rounds, we start to actually, the focus starts. So sometimes we may need to chant more rounds. Or if we just keep chanting our rounds, then ultimately the mind becomes focused. Otherwise, we may try different mental tricks. And there are very nice ways. You can put a picture there, try to focus our mind on Krishna, or we can read something before chanting. But I found myself that still, after 3 or 4 rounds, my mind will go here and there, and I will lose the focus. Ultimately, we have to focus on the chanting itself. Ultimately, if we want to be focused in chanting, we have to get into the chanting itself. We have to take pleasure in the chanting itself. We have to really get into it, like our great souls in our movement tell us, not just chanting, but really chanting. And so the solution is just to keep chanting. If we just keep on chanting, then the mind ultimately will accept defeat.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, there is a question from Siddhanath Prabhu. Prabhuji is saying, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam. Pandavas were already nicely practicing devotional service. How further they absorbed more and more?
Very nice question. So, yes, the Pandavas were already fully Krishna conscious and fully absorbed in devotional service. So why the Lord is telling them this? This is because Srila Prabhupada says that the mother-in-law teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching her daughter. So by teaching her daughter, the daughter-in-law learns automatically. In the same way, the Lord teaches the world by teaching his devotees. The Pandavas, Arjuna, they are liberated, they are pure devotees of the Lord, more than liberated souls. They're in constant touch with the Lord. How can there be any fault in them? But Krishna is making a fault because by pointing out their mistake, so to say, Krishna is teaching all of us the importance of Purushottam. And Krishna also does this to Arjuna when he puts him into illusion so that he can speak the Bhagavad-Gita. Arjuna was a pure devotee of the Lord. Krishna says, among the Pandavas, I am Partha. He's actually the best. but he puts him into illusion so that he can teach us. So the Pandavas did increase their devotional service because the Lord asked them, although they were completely engaged in the Lord's service, they became even more intense in their devotional service. One may ask, how is that possible? It is possible. Even the great devotees of the Lord keep on expanding their devotional service. Right? We say that Krishna is ever expanding, but bhakti is also ever expanding. And so the devotee feels even more inspired and they expand it more. Although they're 100% engaged, they can still expand it more. And this is the amazing nature of bhakti and amazing nature of spiritual life, that it is beyond logic in some ways. Krishna is most beautiful, yet he can become even more beautiful. When he sees Srimati Radharani, he becomes even more beautiful. He's the best, yet he can become even better. So this is all spiritual logic. They're fully devotees of the Lord, yet they can become even more engaged, or you could say absorb, or expand their devotional service to the Lord. Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, one question from my side. You explained about the aspect of Shara and Akshara, and the pure devotees, they are infallible. And we see that even in Bhagavatam, also in contemporary, this one in the case of Srila Prabhupada also, like for example, Lord Shiva, he had to what is that? He got attracted to the Mohini Murti form of the Lord. Then we see sometimes great devotees also commit mistakes. How do we actually take that? So when we hear sometimes Srila Prabhupada class, we know some shlokas, and Prabhupada cites it a little differently. Immediately the mind thinks that even great devotees can commit mistake. So how to adjust?
Yes, very nice point. 2 points on this. One is that there, like in the case of Lord Shiva, because that was your first example. In the case of Lord Shiva, their mistake is also part of their infallibility. Their mistake is also part of their infallibility. Why? Because that mistake is done by the desire of the Lord. So another example, for example, Bhishma Dev did not speak up. He did not oppose Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra when Draupadi begged him for protection during the assembly. And as a grandsire, he could have gotten up. It was his duty. Others were duty bound, but he was not, because his position was more senior in some ways to even the king. He had the right to chastise the king, but he did not do it. So he was mistaken. Yet he is one of the Mahajans. But why? He is still infallible because that mistake was due to the desire of the Lord. In the Mahabharata, there's actually one sub-story that the day before, Lord Krishna comes to Bhishma Dev and says, tomorrow this will happen, but you remain silent. It is my duty, my desire that you should not resist this. And Bhishma Dev finds it very difficult to resist it, but he still does because the Lord has asked him. So the devotee's apparent infallibility is still their infallibility because it's happening by the will and desire of the Lord. And the second point, in terms of like Srila Prabhupada's shlokas or mistakes, small mistakes that the devotee may make, just because the devotee is infallible does not mean that they are all-knowing. These are two different things. Infallible means that the devotee will not do anything that is contrary to the will of the Lord. See, our definition of infallible is different than spiritual definition of infallible. Infallible means that you will not do anything contrary to the will of the Lord. Then you are infallible. In the material world, infallible means how many mathematical equations you can solve. But that is actually not infallible, because such a person is fallible because they are wrong because they have not pleased the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada is infallible in the sense that he never did anything that was contrary to the will of the Lord. But materially speaking, he himself says that Vag Visargo Janataga Viplavo. Materially speaking, there are so many mistakes There could be so many mistakes in terms of grammar mistakes, something, some spiritual narrations, just like any class, someone, may say one word that is linguistically incorrect. So many mistakes may be there, but that is not the definition of infallibility.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So there is a question in the chat box. Thanks for such a great session. Please throw light on what all can be done in this month to experience more bliss.
Well, actually, we are quite fortunate that this month has come during the lockdown. Of course, in India, there's still not much of a lockdown, but here there is. So it's a wonderful time to perform, increase our bhakti, because we cannot go shopping, we cannot waste our time like we used to before, or we have less of a reason to waste our time. By Krishna's mercy, we are actually in a situation which is forcing us to go deeper inside rather than focus on material things. So during this month, we should increase our sadhana to the Lord. We should try to serve the Lord by chanting his names more, by reading about him, by hearing about him. And also during this month, a very powerful way we can serve the Lord is to increase our preaching activities, to increase our activities of sharing Krishna consciousness through the process of book distribution, Harinam Sankirtan, Prasadam distribution. So whatever spiritual activity attracts us, whatever we like to do for the Lord, whatever is our service for the Lord, we can increase that. So we are maybe distributing one Bhagavatam set each week. Now we can do 2 Bhagavatam sets each week. Or we are distributing one Bhagavad-Gita every day. We can now distribute 2 Bhagavad-Gitas every day. So like this, we should increase the preaching activities because the Lord is very pleased. He says, Nachatasmat manishyeshu kashidyatati siddhaye. He's very pleased when we do our own sadhana very nicely. And the Lord is especially pleased when we also try to preach very nicely. So both our achar and prachar can be increased.
Prabhuji, there is another question where Avinash Prabhu is asking, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavats Pranam. In continues to Prabhuji's question, do we have to chant more rounds immediately after completing 16 rounds, or any time in the day is also fine?
What was the first part of it?
So it's in continuation to the previous question where you were explaining that our concentration starts to pick up when we do 16. So the more rounds, should we do it immediately after 16 or afterwards also?
Well, we have to see what our seva is and how much seva we have. So so Srila Prabhupada, he reduced the number of rounds that we had to chant from 64 to 16. And he reduced it not so that we can then engage in sense enjoyment for the rest of the day, but he reduced it because he knew he was establishing a preaching movement. He knew that his devotees would have so many preaching services. So sometimes we may have the time to do more rounds, but other times, if our service is there, then our service may be more important in the sense that we've done our 16 rounds. And by doing those sincerely, Srila Prabhupada is pleased and may forgive our lack of attention. He wants us to improve it, but still he may be pleased. And now his desire would be, and the desire of the senior devotees is that we engage in bhakti, devotional service, practical seva, so that we can do our service. However, if we do have the time, then we should keep on chanting. What is the loss? So if our concentration is building at our 15th or 16th round, then let's do another 16 rounds. Why not? Srila Prabhupada said minimum of 16 rounds. So we can always do more. And if we like, we can chant later on also. But sometimes when the concentration is finally already there, it is easier to continue. Because if you stop and then you start again later on, then again you may have to get the concentration moving, get it going. So if we have the time, if we are not artificially giving up our other services, at this stage in our spiritual life, we have to do both. Then we have the time, then we can keep on chanting. It'll be very nice.
Prabhu, one question about can everyone offer tulsi stick ghee lamp to the Lord during this month? Can we use tulsi stick for this one?
So, very nice question. Actually, yes, offering tulsi to the Lord during this month is very auspicious. It's greatly recommended. The key thing in this is that we have to see that for our offering to the Lord, we are not giving Tulsi Maharani too much pain. So if everyone goes and breaks sticks from Tulsi Maharani, that will also be an offense. So anyone can offer to the Lord, but we also have to see that that are we, how are we getting the stick of Tulsi Maharani? We should not cause her too much pain.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. So Naveen Prabhu is asking, is it offensive to chant Maha Mantra during driving or maybe using laptop or mobile or maybe doing any work?
We have to chant 24 hours a day. How can it be offensive to chant? We should chant in the bathroom. We should chant while we are dreaming, while we are sleeping. We should chant while we are driving. We should chant while we are on the laptop. However, our 16 rounds, those we should not do. Those we have to do seriously, with full concentration. We should do it nicely. We should avoid doing that while we are driving. But we can chant at any time. We should chant at every moment, every moment. And Srila Prabhupada actually clarifies this point on many occasions. Even in the bathroom, we should be chanting. We can chant softly, we can chant in our mind, but we should be chanting at all times. Because if we die in the bathroom, which happens it happens from time to time, people, they die in the bathroom, then we will not go back home, back to Godhead. We must chant in every situation of life.
So Lakshmi Mataji is asking, what does Supreme Lord expect us to do as humans? What responsibility has He wants us to fulfill as humans, the human beings?
So this is in general, as human beings, what is our responsibility?
Yes, Prabhuji.
As human beings, our main responsibility is to act like human beings. See, if a dog crosses the street on a red light, of course, in India, there's not so much strict rules, but here in the US, this is, I guess, a US example. If a dog crosses the red light, no one gives a ticket to the dog. But if a human being crosses during the red light, immediately there's a ticket. Why? Because a human being is a life of responsibility. Krishna has given us higher intelligence, so we can actually become very, very responsible. And part of that responsibility is to realize the meaning of life, to realize the truth. So if we are acting in a way in which we are just acting like an animal, irresponsible life, no interest in spiritual life, then Krishna will say, well, this human form of life was meant for spiritual development. It was meant for spiritual realization. You did not use it for this purpose during your life. So it seems like you don't need the human form of life. In your next life, you can become an animal. Because you're using the human life only for animal things, better you just become an animal. Because the animal life is so much more suited for material enjoyment. Actually, scientists have done this study. They've shown how the human body, amongst all the species, is the weakest body. So like an animal, if they drink some infected water, they won't get sick. They do it all the time. But if a human being drinks it, you'll immediately get sick. So actually, it's the weakest body, physically speaking, in terms of infections and things, than any other species. The only plus point in this is this spiritual intelligence that the human body has the potential of developing. So if we don't use human life for its purpose, then Krishna says you're not using it for this purpose. The animal body is more suited for the material activities that you want to do. So in your next life, you will become an animal. So we must use human life to act like a human being. That is the main point.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Still some more questions are there, but we have to get on to the next program. Thanks a lot, Prabhuji, for your wonderful association. We are really feeling blessed by your association. Thanks a lot, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Very good. So we hope to have your association more in the future. Okay, so this is a wonderful session that we had from His Grace Gopal Hari Prabhu. Right from childhood, he has been a very amazing devotee. So now, with this, the nice mood that has been set, so let's get into the our everyday program that we will be doing from today onwards for 1 month. 16th of October is the last day of the Purushottam month. So till then we will be doing, and also the first 7 days, starting from yesterday to 23rd is celebrated as the World Holy Name Week. And on this time, I would request everyone to chant some extra rounds, that you can, and then also make people chant and record those videos and upload. As we had communicated in the communication that you can help many new people to chant 1 round of Hare Krishna mantra or 1 time Hare Krishna mantra, and that can actually add up to the that can actually change the face of the world, that can actually add the peace and prosperity to the entire world. So with this, I would request the Sanjeev Prabhu. Okay, I'll just give permission to Sanjeev Prabhu to share his screen, and also Vaishnavi. I think Raghavendra Prabhu's login, she must be. So now today we are going to have Vaishnavi, okay. So you're sharing the screen from the mobile. Should I share from the system? So that's a better. Oh, okay, that's looking good. Okay. So I would request Vaishnavi to start the recitation of the 15th chapter for all of us. So for all of your information, Vaishnavi is the daughter of His Grace Raghavendra Prabhu's daughter, and very, very wonderful young Vaishnavi, her name itself says, and she's going to recite the 15th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, the Purushottam Yoga, for all of us, and we will follow as it is shown in the screen. So we will follow with her. So Vaishnavi, over to you. You can start your chant.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Am I audible?
Yes, Mataji.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Bhagavaruvacha Udhamulam Adhashakam Ashvatham Prahuranani Yastam Vedasa Vedaved अधश्च ऊर्ध्वं प्रसुता तस्य शाखा गुणा प्रवृद्धा विषया प्रबलः अधश्च मूलानि अनुसन्ततानि कर्मानुबन्धीनि मनुष्यलोके न रूपमस्येह ततो फलभ्यते नातो न चादेन च सम्प्रतिष्ठा अश्वत्थमेनं सुविरूढमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण दृढेन चित्वा तदा पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यं यस्मिन् गता नानिवर्तन्ति भूयः तमेव चात्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः प्रवृत्ति प्रस्तुता पुराणी निर्मानमोहाजितसङ्गदोषा आध्यात्मनित्या विनिवृद्धकामः द्वन्द्वैर्विमुक्ता सुखदुःखसंज्ञे गच्छन्त्यमूढा पदमव्ययं तत् न तद्भाषयते सूर्यो न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा नानिवर्तन्ते तद्धामा परमं मम ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूतः सनातनः मनःषष्ठानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति शरीरं यदवाप्नोति यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वासयात् स्तोत्रं चक्षुस्पर्शनं च रसनं घ्राणमेव च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चायं विषयानुपसेवते उत्क्रामन्तं स्थितं वापि भुञ्जानं वा गुणान्वितं विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषः यतन्तो योगिनश्चैनं पश्यन्ति आत्मनि अवस्थितं यतन्तोऽप्याकृतात्मानो नैनं पश्यन्ति अचेतसः यदादित्यगतं तेजो जगद्भाषयतेऽखिलं यच्चन्द्रमसि यच्छाग्नौ तत्तेजो विद्धि मामकम् गामाविश्य च भूतानि धारयामि यः ओजसा पुष्णामि चौषधिः सर्वा सोमो भूत्वा रसात्मकः अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रितः प्राणापानसमायुक्तः पचान्यन्नं चतुर्विधम् सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मत्ता स्मृतिज्ञानमपोहनं च वेदैश्च सर्वैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृद्वेदविदेव चाहम् द्वाविमौ पुरुषौ लोके क्षरक्षर एव च क्षरः सर्वाणि भूतानि कूटस्थोऽक्षर उच्यते उत्तमः पुरुषस्त्वन्यः परमात्मेत्युदावृतः यो लोकत्रयमाविश्य बिभर्ति अव्यय ईश्वरः यस्माक्षरम् अतीतोऽहम् अक्षरादपि चोत्तमः अतोऽस्मि लोके वेदे च प्रथितः पुरुषोत्तमः यो मामेवम् असम्मूढो जानाति पुरुषोत्तमं स सर्वविद् भजति मां सर्वभावेन भारत इति गुह्यतमं शास्त्रम् इदम् उक्तं मया नघ एतद् बुद्ध्वा बुद्धिमान् स्यात् कृताकृत्यश्च भारत हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for your sweet chanting of this 15th chapter. Devotees who want to volunteer for chanting this 15th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita and also singing the Chaurashtakam in the further days to come, so I request you contact your mentors or Bhakti-Viksha leaders and then send your recording of your performance, and they will send it across to Sanjeev Prabhu, who is the coordinator of this Purushottam month event, and he will see that if it is nice, then you will be extended an opportunity to come and perform in the every day, like one of the days you will be given an opportunity to perform. So thank you very much, Vaishnavi, for your nice chanting. And now we will get on to the singing of Chaurashtakam, and I would invite Achyut Prabhu. I don't know like what ID he is in. Okay, just a minute. We will be back. Okay, so we have His Grace Achyut Prabhu going to perform today or sing the Chaurashtakam, and for all of your benefits, so we have made the slides wherein the stanzas are presented, and also the meanings of these wonderful song is presented. So this song is really amazing, which says how Krishna is a transcendental thief. He steals the mind of people, he steals the butter, he steals the all the sinful reactions of his devotees, and he steals everything, including the heart of the devotee. And this devotee, Bilva Mangal Thakur, is really pouring out his heart in an amazing way, right? So let's all follow His Grace Achyut Prabhu and sing this very wonderful bhajan today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Are we
Achyut
audible
Prabhu.
here?
Yes, Prabhu.
Are we audible? So I have the entire ISKCON Whitefield team sitting. We have together. We have Revati Prabhu on the Mridanga, and His Grace Kartikeya Prabhu, Charan Prabhu, and Harinarayan Prabhu, and Kotishashi Prabhu singing all together. So let's try to sing this song. Very nice bhajan. Vraje prasidham navneet chauram Gopangananam chadukula chauram Gopangananam chadukula Anek janmarjita papa chauram Chauragraganyam purusham namami Shri Radhikaya hridayasya chauram Navam Buddha Shamala Kanti Puram Shri Radhikaya hridayasya chauram Padashritanam cha samasta chauram Chauragraganyam purusham namami Padashritanam cha samasta chauram Chauragraganyam purusham namami अकिञ्चनीकृत्य पदाश्रितं यः करोति भिक्षुं पतिगेहहीनम् केनाप्यहो भीषणचौर ईदृग् दृष्टा श्रुतो वा न जगत्त्रयेऽपि यदीयनामापि हरत्यशेषं गिरिप्रसारानपि पापराशिम् आश्चर्यरूपो ननु चौरईदृक् दृष्टः श्रुतो वा न माया कदापि आश्चर्यरूपो ननु चौरईदृक् दृष्टः श्रुतो वा न माया कदापि धनं च मानं च तथेन्द्रियाणि प्राणांश्च विद्वा मम सर्व एव पलायसे कुत्र धृतोऽध्यक्षौरा त्वं भक्तिदाम्नासि मया निरुद्धः पलायसे कुत्र धृतोऽध्यक्षौरा त्वं भक्तिदाम्नासि मया निरुद्धः चिन्ता क्षीणत्सि घोरं यमपाशबन्धं भीनत्सि भीमं भव पाशबन्धं क्षीणत्सि घोरं यमपाशबन्धं भीनत्सि भीमं भव पाशबन्धं क्षीणत्सि सर्वस्य समस्तबन्धं नैवात्मनो भक्तकृतं तु बन्धुम् क्षीणत्सि सर्वस्य समस्तबन्धं नैवात्मनो भक्तकृतं तु बन्धुम् मन्मानसे तामसराशि घोरे कारागृहे दुःखमय निबद्धः मन्मानसे तामसराशि घोरे कारागृहे दुःखमय निबद्धः लभस्व हि चौरहरे चिरयाय स्वचौर्यदोषोचितम् एव दण्डम् लभस्य हि चौरहरे चिराय स्वचौर्यदोषोचितम् एव दण्डम् कारागृहे वास सदा हृदय मणिये मद्भक्ति पाश दृढ़ बंधन निश्चल कारागृहे वास सदा हृदय मणिये मद्भक्ति पाश दृढ़ बंधन निश्चल त्वं कृष्ण हे प्रलय कोटि शतान्तरेऽपि सर्वस्य चौरहृदायन्नहि मोचयामि त्वं कृष्ण हे प्रलय कोटि शतान्तरेऽपि सर्वस्य चौरहृदायन्नहि व्रजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचौरं गोपाङ्गनानां च दुकूलचौरं व्रजे प्रसिद्धं नवनीतचौरं गोपाङ्गनानां च दुकूलचौरम् अनेक जन्मार्जित पापचौरं चौराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि अनेक जन्मार्जित पापचौरं चौराग्रगण्यं पुरुषं नमामि हरे कृष्ण Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, do we also read the meanings or the translation of the verses, or do we stop here?
Yeah, that will be nice if we can read.
Yeah, we'll just read one by one. I offer pranam to that foremost of thieves, who is famous in Vraja as the butter thief, and he who steals the gopis' clothes, and who, for those who take shelter of him, steals the sins which they have accrued over many lifetimes.
I offer pranam to the foremost of thieves, who steals Srimati Radhika's heart, who steals the dark lustre of a fresh rain cloud, and who steals all the sins and sufferings of those who take shelter of his feet.
He turns his surrendered devotees into paupers and wandering, homeless beggars. Aho, such a fearsome thief has never been seen or heard of in all the three worlds.
Mere utterance of his name purges one of a mountain of sins. Such an astonishingly wonderful thief I have never seen or heard of anywhere.
O thief, having stolen my wealth, my honor, my senses, my life, and my everything, where can you run to? I have caught you with the rope of my devotion.
You cut the terrible noose of Yamaraj. You sever the dreadful noose of material existence, and you slash everyone's material bondage. But you are unable to cut the knot fastened by your own loving devotees.
O stealer of my everything, O thief, today I have imprisoned you in the miserable prison house of my heart, which is very fearful due to the terrible darkness of my ignorance, and there for a very long time you will remain, receiving appropriate punishment for your crimes of thievery.
O Krishna, thief of my everything, the noose of my devotion remaining forever tight, you will continue to reside in the prison house of my heart, because I will not release you for millions of eons.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari. So it's a wonderful beginning of the Purushottam month. So all of us gathered together for this chanting of 15th chapter and then the Chaurashtakam singing. So we will try to do this every single day of this Purushottam month and coming together and doing this very wonderful sacred activity. So I request all of you to participate very nicely in this event, and also come forward and volunteer to chant and sing. So if you want to volunteer, you can actually send across your recording to your Bhakti Vriksha leaders or mentors, and then they can verify them and send it across to Sanjeev Prabhu. He will take a final call and schedule the devotees for various days. So thank you all very much. Wishing you a very, very happy Purushottam month, and hope all of you increase your devotional service and take full advantage of this great month. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Purushottam month ki jai.